Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you some of the best college football news, predictions, and analysis. As always, make sure you hit that like button, go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert, and of course, check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com, where you can sign up for our expert picks and also sign up for our weekly newsletter. The links for all those things are in the description below, so do not miss out on this extra college football coverage and extra college football content. Well, week 5 of the college football season was certainly not the most exciting. We only had a handful of upsets, and there really weren't that many thrilling games. And we are here, of course, to break everything down, what happened in week 5, who's trending up, who's trending down, and how we fared in our predictions, both straight up and against the spread. Of course, those can be found at our expert picks over on our website. But before we jump into the analysis, I do want to address the elephant in the room. Yes, we did pick Nebraska to beat Ohio State. We did. We picked it back in the preseason. We stuck with it and picked it just last week in our week 5 prediction video. And I will, of course, own up to it. We were wrong. We were way wrong. And we received a lot of comments from that, and rightfully so. We expect that. We will own up to our losses. We will gladly celebrate our victories, but we will own up to our losses and own up to our mistakes. And that Nebraska pick was certainly a major mistake. More on that game later, but that was a game that I think many, including ourselves, thought Nebraska would put up a bigger fight. College game days there, sellout crowd, top 5 team in the country. You would expect a bigger fight out of Scott Frost and his Cornhuskers, and they were unable to do that. So we've got that out of the way. We received a lot of hate. We received one. I loved it. It was, do not pursue a career in this. You might want to reevaluate. And don't fully agree with that, but to each their own. We do have a couple comments to share ourselves, though. They're back. Of course, I know everybody loved to hear the comments we have to read. Benjamin Orman regarding the Florida State and North Carolina State game, telling me that Florida State will suck again. These predictions, referring to our NC State predictions, are bad. North Carolina State will prove you wrong again. And I'm still waiting for North Carolina State to prove me wrong this year. They've played 5 games. We have predicted all 5 right for the Wolfpack. So Benjamin, continue to tweet me, continue to spam us with hate and comments. We truly do enjoy it until North Carolina State can prove us wrong. And then, of course, we had a lot from Kentucky and South Carolina, a big SEC East matchup on Saturday night. Brad Reading, you do know that Kentucky has beaten South Carolina 5 years in a row. We were well aware of that when we picked South Carolina to beat Kentucky. We did our research. We did our homework. David Decker, my favorite one, that suit and tie does not help your football knowledge. We're not wearing one today. Usually we are. Not wearing one today, but we know it doesn't help us. It doesn't give us these mystical powers. I could come out here shirtless and we'd still be doing just fine, both straight up and against the spread. But Joshua Strouth, when I said that Kentucky simply does not have enough to beat South Carolina, that was the hardest I've laughed in a while. All the experts have been saying the same thing the past 5 years. I don't know why everyone's so high on South Carolina every offseason. When will the experts wake up? Well, I can tell you what, Joshua, we are filming this at 2 in the morning, and we are wide awake. South Carolina took easy care of Kentucky, 24-7. No excuses from the Wildcats for playing with their backup QB, because South Carolina had to do the exact same thing. But Joshua, I'm very happy that we were able to give you a laugh back in the offseason. I hope you're able to continue to do that, as Kentucky is now sitting at 2-3 going into a crucial bye week before they face off against Arkansas, who is struggling, of course, in week 7. So enough of that. Enough of the nonsense. Had to get some comments. We had some come towards us. We own up to our losses. We always will do that here at the Gridiron Expert, but we also like to throw some back as well. Straight up this week, 26-8 in week 5, 76.5%. Round that up at 77%. As many of you know, our benchmark is 76. If we hit 76% or better at the end of the year, we consider that a very successful season. And of course, overall right now, we're at 187-43. That's 81.3%, so above 80%, and we are very pleased with that. Almost halfway through the season, this is one of the better starts that we've had at the Gridiron Expert, and now our 3rd year of doing this. Against the spread, on our expert picks, if you signed up for those, and I highly encourage that you do if you're not already, another solid week. 6-4, right at 60%. Had a couple games that didn't go our way. Unfortunately, some of them due to injuries. I believe California, we picked them against the spread. Chase Garbers goes down early on. Purdue loses Elijah Sindelar and Rondale Moore in a game that when we picked it was a pick'em game, a straight-up game. They lost that game by 7. So a couple things didn't go our way, but still well above 500. We have not gone below 500 at all this season. Brings our overall to 30, 19, and 1, which is right at 62%. So, once again, that's still better than everybody over at Saturday Down South, CBS, ESPN, YouTube, Phil Steele, you name it. We've got a very solid spread record through 5 weeks of this season. So, I highly encourage you to go sign up for those. And those of you that have, I hope things are going well for you if you are utilizing our expert picks. So, like we said, Week 5 was not the most exciting week of college football. Only 4 teams in the top 25 went down. 2 of those, of course, came from ranked versus ranked matchups. USC fell to Washington, Virginia fell to Notre Dame, but the 2 other ones came versus unranked teams as Kansas State fell on the road to Oklahoma State and California on Friday night fell at home to Arizona State. And that's where we'll start, kind of recapping what happened in Week 5. Arizona State went on the road, upset the 15th ranked Golden Bears 24-17, which means there are no longer any Pac-12 teams that are undefeated. California was the last one. And with that loss, it probably eliminated the Pac-12 from the college football playoff race. And we knew that. Depth-wise, this is the least talented and least deep conference out of the Power 5. We knew that. Oregon, maybe you can make a case for the Ducks trying to make a run and still making that top 4 if they win out. But I don't think their resume is going to be good enough to do that. Arizona State and Herm Edwards spoiling the Pac-12, but a huge win for his squad. Same can be said for Penn State. Going on the road and beating Maryland 59-0. Shutting out the Terrapins, who had such a great offense in the first 2 weeks of the season. They're trending down. We'll touch on them in a second. But the Nittany Lions held Maryland to just 65 yards through the air from Josh Jackson, forced 2 interceptions. Penn State not just looking like a Big Ten title contender, but also, once again, a college football playoff contender. So those were your big Friday night games. Nothing too shocking, nothing too major. Maybe Arizona State was shocking to some, but I know a lot of people expected the Sun Devils to put up a huge fight. Saturday, though, once again, not as exciting as Week 4, Week 3, even Week 2, but still not bad. It kicked off at 11 o'clock with a thriller down in Dallas. And you would have to expect that. When Texas A&M and Arkansas face off at Jerry's World, it's going to be a great game. The Razorbacks were coming off a loss to San Jose State. Texas A&M, coming off a loss to Auburn, were still 24-point favorites coming into this game. But if history was any indication, you knew that 24 points was way too high. We knew that. We took Arkansas and won that game on our expert picks. A&M did win that game 31-27, extending their streak to 8 straight over the Razorbacks. But Arkansas showing some major improvement in just a span of 1 week. Either that, or Texas A&M is severely overrated, or maybe it's both. A&M sitting at 3-2 right now, but still have yet to play Alabama, Georgia, and LSU. So a year that many thought A&M could win 8 or 9 games, maybe contend for the SEC West title, despite the difficult schedule, could result in a 6-6 or 7-5 season for the Aggies. Moving on to 2:30, almost had our biggest upset of the year. Could have been the biggest upset of the year. Number 1 Clemson went to Chapel Hill, take on North Carolina. 27.5-point favorites. And escaped by 1 point. Kenneth Burleson, if you're watching this, you called it, man. You're a Clemson fan, but you said the game against North Carolina was going to be close. A lot of people didn't believe you. I didn't believe you. I figured it would be 14 points, 17 points. Not 1 point, coming down to a 2-point conversion from the Tar Heels. Matt Brown electing to go for 2, trying to win the game over the number 1 team in the country. Went on the option play, and Clemson sniffed it out and stuffed the Tar Heels. And, of course, the onside kick, very reminiscent of what happened in the ACC Championship a few years ago between the Tar Heels and the Tigers. North Carolina had a very good chance to recover, were unable to do so. Clemson escaped with a 21-20 victory. Credit to UNC, though. They've lost a couple in a row. We know that, but a drastic improvement from what we saw last year. Matt Brown has this squad going in the right direction, nearly pulled off the shocking upset. Clemson, though, certainly not looking like the number 1 team in the country right now. Notre Dame facing off against Virginia. Huge ranked versus ranked matchup. Number 10 versus number 18. The defense came alive for the Fighting Irish. 8 sacks against the Cavaliers. 8. That's unbelievable. The defense stepped up big time for Notre Dame. They trailed 17-14 at halftime, ended up winning the game 35-20, and luckily for us, covered the spread in that one. Ian Book, not a bad game through the air, but we mentioned, where's the running game for Notre Dame? When is the running game going to take place? They can't solely rely on Ian Book. The running game emerged like yesterday, on Saturday. Tony Jones for Notre Dame, 131 yards and 3 touchdowns, averaging 7.3 yards per carry. So a huge bounce-back win for Notre Dame after that crushing loss to Georgia back in Week 4. Notre Dame's hopes for the college football playoff are certainly still alive. And this is once again a quality win over a good opponent, ranked opponent, and winning by double digits helps their case even more. Washington took care of business in Pac-12 play, taking down USC in a game that many thought could be an upset, one that many thought could be a trap game for the Huskies. But we mentioned in our Game of the Week video that if Washington wanted to win this game, they had to create turnovers. They had to shut down Matt Fink, and that's exactly what they did. They forced 3 interceptions from Fink, and we also mentioned that Salvin Ahmed had to have a big game. 153 yards, a career high for Ahmed, 89-yard rushing touchdown following an interception from Matt Fink. Washington ran away with a 14-point victory and keeps their hopes alive for a Pac-12 title. We're going to move down to the Plains. Bo Nix, it's about time you showed up, my man. It's about time. Auburn looking like a top 7 team, maybe even looking like a top 4 team down in the Plains, taking down Mississippi State 56-23, leading 42-9 at halftime, and Bo Nix by far had his best game in his very young career with Auburn, going 16 for 21, 335 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown. So an unbelievable game from Bo Nix against a Mississippi State team that's not bad. They're not elite, but they're not bad. I did not expect Auburn to run away with the game as much as they did, but Bo Nix, I think that's a huge sigh of relief. He's played well against the likes of Oregon and Texas A&M, but this was the first time that we really saw him come out as a true passer, putting up some major numbers through the air, and it wasn't against a cupcake opponent. So Auburn, once again, looking scary good. Huge game coming up next week, though, against Florida at the Swamp. We're going to move on to Oklahoma State, taking care of Kansas State, one of those ranked teams that went down that we mentioned. Number 24, Kansas State, led by Chris Kleiman, coming over from North Dakota State. We all know that. Great start for the Wildcats. We're just unable to get the job done on the run, mostly or on the road, mostly because they could not stop the run. Chuba Hubbard, statistically, is the best running back in the entire nation. Forget Jonathan Taylor, forget Travis Etienne. Chuba Hubbard, right now, statistically, is the best running back in the entire nation. He had 296 yards against the Wildcats, averaged a whopping 11.8 yards per carry. Oklahoma State wins at home 26-13 and are certainly looking like Big 12 title contenders. They've already played Texas. They usually play Oklahoma very close. So if they can get a win over the Sooners, but I don't know if anybody can, the way Jalen Hurts is operating that offense. But if they do, watch out. Oklahoma State is looking very dangerous, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And then finally, of course, what was for many the bigger game of Week 5, Ohio State traveling to Nebraska. We addressed it at the beginning. We'll address it here again. Kirk, Lee, and the whole College Game Day gang probably wish they hadn't have gone to Lincoln. Reese Davis actually left that game early. That's how bad it got for the Cornhuskers. Ohio State, of course, won 48-7, forcing 3 interceptions from Adrian Martinez in the first half. In the first half, they forced 3 interceptions. Martinez finished with 3 interceptions, no touchdowns, and just 47 yards through the air. Ohio State looks like, to me, the number 1 team in the country right now. Better than Clemson, better than Alabama, who allowed 31 points to Ole Miss, better than Georgia, better than LSU, better than Oklahoma. And I know maybe you're saying I'm jumping to conclusions. All I did was beat Nebraska. They were overrated anyways. This was the first legit test for Ohio State. I know they haven't faced a legitimate ranked opponent. Let's see how they do next week against an elite defense in Michigan State. But Ohio State, in their first true test at night on the road in front of a sellout crowd at Nebraska, which is usually a tough place to play, did not show any signs of fear and played an absolutely perfect game. Ryan Day has not missed a beat since Urban Meyer's departure, and the Buckeyes are looking extremely scary. They deserve to be in at least the top 4 when the new AP poll comes out, if not higher. I'm thinking top 3. If I were ranking them, I'd put them up at number 1, me personally, just from the poor performance that they had this past weekend against Nebraska, which once again did not go our way whatsoever, both straight up and against the spread. All right, teams trending up and trending down. Some of these may come as a surprise to you. We're going to run through them rather quickly. Minnesota right now sitting up there at number 4-0. Should be ranked when the new AP poll comes out. 4-0 is their best start since 2013. And I was pretty cautious on Minnesota right now. Many people thought they could win the Big Ten West this season. I said, let's pump the brakes. Maybe that's next year. Well, it could be this year for Minnesota. Nebraska's not looking hot. Wisconsin's looking great, though. So is Iowa. So Minnesota's certainly going to have a tough test through there. But their first 3 games against South Dakota State, Fresno State, and Georgia Southern, they won by 13 combined points. That did not look promising to me. I thought that they would fall on the road to Purdue. Yeah, losing Elijah Sindelar and Rondale Moore didn't help the Boilermakers' cause, but they beat Purdue 38-31. Tanner Morgan completed 95% of his passes for 396 yards. Minnesota finally found life on the offensive side of the ball, and this score looked closer than it really was as Minnesota led by 21 later on in this game. Their next 4 games are against Illinois at home, Nebraska at home, Rutgers on the road, and Maryland at home. If Minnesota wins all 4 of those, they are 8-0 before they really hit some tougher tests in conference play. Watch out for the Golden Gophers trying to make a run to the Big Ten title game. Baylor coming in as another team trending up. Also sitting at 4-0, a phenomenal job with what Matt Rule has been doing with his Bears program. 1-11 to 7-6. Now 4-0 with a thrilling win over Iowa State. Blew a 20-0 lead. Found themselves down 21-20 in the fourth quarter. Didn't worry about it whatsoever. Worked their way all the way down the field. Kicked a game-winning field goal with just a few seconds remaining. Charlie Brewer looking elite in the pocket. 307 yards and 3 touchdowns. The defense looked great for 3 quarters. Ended up coming up big when it mattered most. Winning that game 23-21. Trap games, though, against Kansas State and Oklahoma State on the road. Baylor doesn't have to face Oklahoma or Texas until the final 3 weeks of the season. So if they can get through a couple of these trap games in Big 12 play, watch out for the Bears in November when things get really hectic in college football. And then finally, teams trending up. How about Wake Forest? How about these Demon Deacons sitting at 5-0? Their first 5-0 start since 2007 when they went on to go to the Orange Bowl. Jamie Newman doing it all through the air and on the ground. And their next 4 games for the Demon Deacons are against Louisville, Florida State, NC State, and then on the road at Virginia Tech. Every single one of those is winnable for Dave Clawson and his squad. They just went on the road and beat Boston College. If they win all 4 of those games, they're 9-0 with a huge showdown against Clemson on November 16th. Watch out for the Demon Deacons and the ACC. Dave Clawson making major moves out in Winston-Salem. Teams trending down, no surprise there. Maryland. What happened? Mike Locksley, explain to me what happened. The Terrapins scored 142 points in their first 2 games, annihilated Syracuse in week 2. Since then, in their past 2 games, they've mustered 17 points. They scored 17 against Temple, which resulted in a loss, and they got shut out at home on a Friday night against Penn State. And it wasn't just a 7-0 shutout, 59-0. That's bad, guys. That's bad. A team that we would have had trending up had they beaten Temple is now on our teams trending down. They're about to run into the bulk of conference play, and that offense and that team period is not looking anywhere close to what we thought they were going to be back in the first couple weeks of the season. Virginia Tech coming in at number 2, teams trending down. I know our guy Hunter. Man, I know you're disappointed. I know you're not happy to see him trending down. I know you're not happy after that performance on Friday night. The Hokies falling to Duke at home, 45-10. Very uninspiring against the Blue Devils, and uninspiring victories against Old Dominion and Furman. So, obviously, things are not going well for Justin Fuente and his Hokies. Offense wasn't getting anything done Friday night. The defense had no answer for Quentin Harris. They have a lot of things to work out if they want to even try to get to a bowl game. But Hunter, I hate to say it, like we've talked about in the live streams, they've got to win at least 7, and I don't think that's going to be possible this season for Virginia Tech. And then finally, last team trending down, Purdue. They were 0-3 to kick off 2018. They're 1-3 to kick off 2019. Now, losing Elijah Sindelar and Rondale Moore on the same play against Minnesota is not ideal. I get it. Also, playing without Marcus Bailey and Lorenzo Neal on defense is not ideal. I get that. But those 4 guys combined weren't going to stop Tanner Morgan, who threw for 95% of his passes and 396 yards through the air. They didn't have an answer for him. They weren't going to stop him. Purdue off to another rough start, the lone win coming at home against Vanderbilt. And if Sindelar and Rondale Moore are out for an extended period of time like we expect them to be, it could be a very, very rough and disappointing season for Jeff Brom and the Boilermakers. So it's unfortunate. Injury bugs, man, it's a killer to a team. You can't do anything about it, but that really can make or break a team's season. Can really tear down all the success and the hope you have. It's just the way it is. It's the unfortunate thing about this game that we've come to love, but of course, can't do anything about it. So unfortunately for Purdue, they're on there trending down. Hopefully they can right the ship like they did last year, but with these injuries, I'm going to say they cannot. So week 5, not the most exciting, but not a bad week for us across the board. Got your teams trending up. You got your teams trending down. You saw how we did. How did you do? Leave your predictions. Leave how you did in the comments below, and tell us what you're most looking forward to in week 6. We've got huge games with Central Florida and Cincinnati, Iowa, Michigan, Auburn, Florida, California, Oregon. Week 6 is one that you're not going to want to miss. We're halfway through the college football season. Plenty of content coming your way the rest of this week, so don't miss out on any of it. Go check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert. Check out the website, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Sign up for the expert picks. And as always, continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time on the Gridiron Expert.